Good afternoon, everyone. Like I just said, we still have some folks trickling in, so we'll give it another minute and then we'll go ahead and get started with our webinar today. Thanks for joining. Okay, we can go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our Road to Kearney webinar series this afternoon. This is our first of the season, so very excited to have you all join us. By way of introduction, my name is Caroline Viola. I am a campus recruiter out of our New York office, and I'm very excited, like I said, to have you all here and learn a little bit more about Kearney as you go into the fall recruiting season and your MBA program. So before we dive in, just a couple of logistics here. So we have a great panel today for all of you. So we'd like for this to be interactive. If you have questions, you'll see that there is Slido for you to submit your questions. If you see one that you like and you want answered, you can go ahead and upvote that and we'll answer the most popular questions that come through. And if you have any anonymous questions, you can go ahead and send them to Morgan Daniels. She is a co-host here as well and moderating through the questions. And in case your questions are not answered at the end of this webinar, we do have an inbox, kearneycareers.mba@kearney.com that our team does monitor, and we'll go ahead and answer your questions there for you. So with that, really excited to have our panelists with us today, and I'll go ahead and pass it to Namrata.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. I'm Namrata Shah. I'm a partner in our product design practice based out of Boston. I've been with the firm now 12 years and counting. I've moved a couple of practices, moved offices, but more importantly, during this time, I've also taken 3 full years of LOA, which is a leave of absence, had 3 kids, and done a lot of different work during this time as well. So looking forward to share why I'm here. I love the firm and I love what we do, and looking forward to our conversation.
Hi, everyone. My name's Tate. I'm a manager out of the New York office. I was a summer associate back in 2020 during the COVID times, and then rejoined the company in July of 2021. So I've been full-time, roughly 2.5 years now. I'm currently a generalist, but soon I'll be aligning to our leadership change and organization practice. And so I'm, very excited to meet all of you. I was in your shoes very recently and excited to share some of the experiences of making that transition.
And I'm Ashley. I'm an associate in the Washington, D.C. office and in the health practice. I've been at Kearney for almost 3 years now. It'll be 3 years in January. And it's just been a really fun, very just great experience. At times it can be intense, but I think these are all of the elements that make consulting and our firm special in the first place. So I'm excited to talk a bit more about what it's like to be here.
Yeah, so just a couple conversations around who we are as a firm and what we really focus on, right? So I'll get a couple of basics out of the way. We're like any other global consulting firm with offices across, 40 plus offices across the globe. We're about 5,000 people, but I think what's more critical is who we really are, right? And what are the stories of the people behind this firm. So I always say that one of the reasons why I continue to be here 12 years and counting is because Kearney's in a really interesting space of being big enough but small enough, big enough to do the fun, exciting, strategic work that we want to do and have a seat at the table with your biggest clients in the Fortune 100, 500, 1,000 space. But we're small enough that we're all real stories behind the screen, right? One of the reasons that I've been able to take the paths that I have been able to, which is, been a curved path, is because I had people backing me and my story and the life decisions that I wanted to make, because I was just not another number in the employee count, but I was who I was, and my needs and changed over the phases of my life that I was going through and how I wanted to do different kind of work. So I really think this is a very, very key differentiator of us as a firm that gives us the benefit of both worlds, and we're in this really sweet spot. When we ask our clients, most of our clients work with major consulting firms, right? They've seen it all. They've seen the work, they've seen the capabilities, they've seen the people. And every time what I hear from my clients is it comes down to the people and how they show up, right? How we as consultants show up to organizations and teams that breathe in day and day out the work that they're doing, but we come in from the outside and we say there might be a better, different way of doing this. And what is the way we kind of bring them along in that journey is the key differentiator. We have the expertise. I would say that's table stakes, right? Without that, you don't have a seat at the table. But we're really known for showing up with a very, very personal and empathetic style. And it's not about us being the smartest people in the room. We are, but it's about making sure we're there to make our clients successful and make them the smartest people for their careers and their bosses, and help them supercharge their careers. So that's our culture. We truly believe in it. That's how we operate. That's how we work with our clients. And also, we can only make those clients successful and give them supercharge their careers if we invest and make our people successful, right? I spend a lot of time building our teams, making sure that one, I know them, I know their stories behind the screens, but two, I get them to their career path and I help them on their journey. Whether it's about what are the areas they want to focus on, whether it's about what are the kind of projects they want to do, whether it's about any personal life decisions that they're in the middle of and helping them think through that, or whether it's about certain constraints that we need to work with. So that's really key for me as I think about the firm and how we continue to build the next generation of leaders. It's interesting because I'm just coming off of our partner meeting, and every time you talk to the senior partners, the thing that's top of mind for them is the legacy they leave behind. And that legacy is all the people. You will hear Kearney partners again and again talk about the people they've built, and that's the biggest mark. Yes, it's the client stories and the impact, but again, that's table stakes. How do you do that? We do that through our people, having that apprenticeship model, making sure we're invested in their growth so that they can make the impact and we can make the impact together. So if I say who are we really as Kearney, like I will say we really are a firm of very humane people that are extremely smart, but we're here to make each other and our clients successful. And that's what we stand for. If we can just flip to the next page. And how do we do this, right? Like if we think about our strategy as a firm and where we focus, it is really our 3 C's. It's about having the right capabilities that continuously evolve as the market is evolving and the clients, the clients are evolving and their needs are evolving. So making sure we're continuously invested in growing those capabilities and have a pulse in the market across the industries, but across also what else is going on in the market. We serve, more than 2/3 of the Fortune 500 companies. In my journey thus far have served clients that have been 50 million startups, and I've worked with the founder. I've served, multiple nonprofits, and I've served a Fortune 29 company. So I have seen it all. We serve the entire portfolio, and we're continuously focused on how do we grow and expand that in really industries and places that matter. All of this is again underlined by making sure that we are bringing our culture to bear in how we do the work. It's not an internal thing. Internally, we have a very strong hold of what we want our culture to be, but it's about bringing that to the client and making sure that that is a positive in how we do work differently. You hear a lot of times that the consultants might come and tell you what to do and leave, and 1 year later that same deck is sitting gathering dust on the client's desk. We're different. That's not how we do it. A lot of times our clients actually ask us to stay back and help them realize the value of the work we've done, and we become a part of that team. That's how we operate. We're one team, and together we take it all the way, and we help them make the impact that they're really looking for. And that's really what matters. It's not about the recommendations on paper, if you may. It's about how do you bring the team and the clients along on their journey. And that's what we do. And then just one thing on the capabilities. I mean, we've been continuously evolving this. Some of this you might have seen in the market in the last, I want to say in the last 12 to 18 months, we've made more than 7 acquisitions. This has been very bold moves by us, and this has been on topics that are front and center, that are going to impact every single industry, whether it's anything on AI and generative AI, whether it's on heavy data analytics, whether it's on sustainability. We're taking a hybrid approach of, you know, building our own capabilities ground up, but also accelerating. For us being able to accelerate this capability build in the market, we're making bold acquisitions. I've been involved personally in 2 of these and making sure that we integrate well, and it's been a huge success. So it's been a part of our strategy more recently, and we're going to do that, even double down on that going forward. And what that brings to us as consultants within the firm is a lot of opportunity, right? It's a lot of opportunity to work on new and upcoming and different thinking. And it's also a lot of opportunities for all the consultants, because there are secondment opportunities. There's an opportunity to go work in one of the acquired companies that's in a very different space than what we might be doing up until now. So it's been a lot of movement. I would say the firm is on the move, making a lot of bold moves in the market, gaining a lot of share in the market, especially at times when the market has been tough. A lot of you would have read the news on the consulting market being tight, but across this year, we've been able to, continue to grow. So we're all really happy where we are, and we're on the move as a firm, and we're doubling down on our expertise and really the differentiating culture we bring to our clients.
So thank you for that, Namrata. We have a bit of a content here around the types of industries and services that we work in. As you can see, it covers a wide range. And as Namrata mentioned, we work with a majority of the Fortune 500. So we cover a lot of bases in terms of content, industries, and services, and the type of work that we do with our clients. But something that I think stands out to me, and that we alluded to earlier, is we don't just work in silos in each of these industries and services, but we work across them, and we work very collaboratively. And so as one example, I had a project recently with a health client, a pharma company, and the team was really familiar with the pharma industry. Of course, we knew that part really well, but we were helping them work on strategy that touched on other parts and other functions that we were less familiar with as the individuals on the team. But we knew we had experts across the firm that worked in those industries globally. And so we were able to, as is custom practice on all projects at Kearney, we brought in those experts. We helped build content with them. We helped build strategy, and we pulled them into conversations with our clients so that we can always ensure we're delivering the best expertise to them. So I think that collaborative nature, it comes out in the quality of the work that we deliver as well. And I know we have a few questions in the chat, so maybe we can take a moment to address some of those as we continue.
Yeah, sure. I see one directed at me, and I think it actually is like perfectly aligned to the slide. So I can maybe talk about that. So as I mentioned, I entered as a generalist, and I'm soon to align to the leadership change in organization, or what we call LCO here. And the way that I think about these industries and these practices are very similar to what Ashley said. It's kind of your home base, but that doesn't mean that like you don't go to second, third, and the others, because ultimately you're building your capabilities and you're building your expertise and you're building your network within a kind of smaller area of the company. But given the nature of the engagements, they're so cross-functional and tend to have tendrils in so many different areas that a single engagement could have 5 or 6 work streams, which would cover everything from leadership change and analytics to digital, to procurement, to sustainability, whatever it is, because the projects themselves and the scopes of work tend to ask, multiple complex questions that require expertise across all of these boxes here. So even if you're aligned to one practice, you'll still find yourself on projects that have tendrils in all of these other ones, which are really important to understand. And the way the firm is structured, and exactly to Namrata's point, we really have an attitude of kind of bringing the best people to the table with our clients and bringing the best capabilities to them. And given our culture and our size, that means that at any point, if you're on an assignment and say, for an energy company, you may be reaching out to our colleagues all across the world who've done similar projects and similar scopes of work to get their guidance on how best to structure the work or how best to frame the problems for your clients. So it's really what I really like about Kearney is exactly the first thing that Namrata mentioned, which is the size and the kind of the punching above your weight Goldilocks added version of it. I'll give you one example of that just to kind of bring that point home. So when I joined right out of business school, my mentor over the summer was the principal in the private equity practice. And I mentioned that I was interested in trying a due diligence. And about 10 minutes later, he sent an email to the principals and managers, the people responsible for staffing in the private equity practice in the US. Hey, everyone, Tate's a great new associate, go staff him. This is only 10 people, right? It's 10 to 15 people. It's not a huge selection of people. And it's on such a close, collaborative, like collegial environment that that email can go out. And a month later, I found myself staffed doing sustainability work on one of the largest consumer carve-out deals globally in the past 5 years. So you see, you have like massive impact projects through a very small network of very collaborative people around you. So I think that's really what I have loved about working here. In terms of the moving from a generalist to a specialist, I think it comes from where you find your interest ultimately and where you find your talent and your skills. As you start to work on multiple projects, you'll kind of start to feel your way in terms of what interests you. And then obviously, I think another big piece of it is where do you find your people? So I really found my people in the leadership change and organization practice. And given the nature that it's a bit of and I did a lot of work in kind of that space, and given that, it's more of a home base and like, it's kind of, you can always change, you can always explore, you can always find platforms for yourself that are cross-functional. So I see it more as like, this is my support group and my platform. And it allows me a chance to keep developing where I want to.
Great. Thanks, Tate. Tate or Ashley, would you mind just talking quickly while we're on this page about the staffing model here at Kearney? See, that's a question coming through right now.
Happy to speak to that. And I think my audio cut out for a second. You said the staffing model. Did you have another detail there?
Just how the staffing model works here in the US.
Okay.
Or in North America.
Yes. So we do have staffing, of course, that functions. I think largely a lot of people get staffed through, like, you have people that you like to work with and topics that you like to work on. So there's kind of like the formal staffing process and then more of a network-based informal process. The way that the formal process works is that as you become free, so when you're not staffed on something, you enter this pool or you show up on this list of individuals who are free to be staffed, and then someone from our people experience team who's in charge of staffing will reach out to you to figure out if you're a good fit for a project that could be open, to see if you're interested in working with them. And then you'll get connected to the team and work with them from there. If it's a good fit, then you get staffed on the project. And then if the kind of more informal process is you constantly have conversations with and maybe help with proposals with individuals that you've worked with before on topics that you might be familiar with or on new topics. And then as that work sells, becomes available, then it's kind of a natural transition that you'll stay on and officially get staffed on the project.
Yeah, we have a people experience team that's here to enable your career and your aspirations, right? That's their role. It's a dedicated team of folks that knows you inside out in terms of, one, what is the expertise you bring to the table, and two, where do you want your career to go, right? In the initial parts of your career, as you're new and you're still building your network, they're gonna help you, find that best next opportunity for you. Once you have a few projects under your belt, you're going to build your network and you're going to start getting that pull, right? So I think someone asked the question whether it's local, regional, or national. I mean, our staffing model is national across the country. We have a good number of clients that are concentrated in the East Coast, in the West Coast, and in the middle. Anybody that has constraints, right, for any kind of reason, health reason, etc., like we will try to accommodate. And now in the post-COVID world, we're taking different routes to travel as well, if that kind of question is connected to travel. So it depends on, what our clients are doing right now and how much they're back in the office. And sometimes we work together, we co-locate in one of our Kearney offices, and then we alternate with going to the client side.
Yeah,
One other point I would add to that is when a team's interested in you, it's a conversation you have with the team before you say yes to a project. So, you're only, there's a kind of meme that the staffing just assigns you to something and then you find yourself somewhere. That's not at all how it is. It's much more, staffing just is helping you and facilitating those conversations, but ultimately it comes down to this person who's looking for help, which would be a manager, principal, or partner, and yourself, and a conversation you have about whether it's the right fit. So it's, you are empowered, and then as you grow in the firm and you build your network, you're even more empowered.
So we wanted to take some time as well to talk about our values. I think these are important. We really live and breathe these every day, and you'll hear people talk about them and bring them up in conversations, both related to client work and then outside of that as well. And I just wanted to give a couple examples. I think generosity is a really meaningful one for me of our values. And someone asked the question in the chat of, is the organizational structure flat or is it vertical? And as a junior, do you have access to more senior people at the firm? And something that I really like is that you do have access to more senior people because we value everyone's opinion, and it's very collaborative and non-hierarchical in that sense. So I think it's very easy to reach out to people as senior as the managing partner of the firm globally, not to mention the partners that are on your project and the principals and managers and so on. So I think the reason why generosity stands out to me is because I think people are very generous with their time that they share, both in terms of, I need advice as an individual new consultant, like how do I handle these situations? But then also to the example I mentioned earlier of, they're generous with their knowledge and their expertise to ensure that we're delivering the best for the client. So it's a quality of work that we're able to deliver, but then of the life that you have as a consultant here.
That's 100% correct, and you're reminding me that last year I was reaching out to Nimrata herself for some expertise. So as she mentioned, there's no barrier between reaching out to the most senior people in the organization and asking advice, and everyone is very generous with their time. So what really drew me, a little bit of background about myself, I came into consulting from a non-business background. So I really used the MBA experience and consulting as a way to kind of grow my knowledge base. And I think the ultimate reason why I wanted to do this was because of curiosity. And so I knew that I was curious about the world. My previous career was not giving me like the windows into how things work that I wanted. And so that's why I chose to go to business school and why I chose to go into consulting. And I think that is really, one of the core things that unites us as consultants is our curiosity, both towards subject matter and towards, our clients and what's driving them. I think you can't succeed in this job if you're not a kind of naturally curious person. And the good news is that Kearney absolutely delivered on my curiosity. Just to give you like a couple of examples of some of the really unique requests that I've been tasked to kind of figure out, just to give you a sense of like how varied it is and how interesting the work can be. So we were asked by a yogurt company to think about how often they should be refreshing their enzymes because they were like famous for having old enzymes and it's part of their culture. And they said, what are our competitors doing? And this is so fundamental to the product. And how would I know this? I was an architect before business school. How would I know the answer to like how frequently you should be refreshing enzymes? So like really fascinating question. Another question I was asked in the project was for an agricultural business that made food, and they asked, how can we ensure that our entire supply chain is paying its workers a living wages? We have very little control over what's happening in the plantations, but how can we improve that situation? And so, these are really, really interesting, meaty questions that you get asked as a consultant, and I think if you're a curious person, I think this is like a great job for you.
I want to be involved in those questions, Tate. Next time, pull me in.
Absolutely.
Maybe another ad, right? And I'll talk about boldness here. It's a value that we've been encouraging more and more in the recent past at the firm, and we've been living it. I talked about a little bit about the acquisitions we've been making, but just from a personal story perspective. So I have had 2 chapters at Kearney. My first one was actually the practice that Tate is going to join, which is LTO, where I did all things intangible op model design, change, governance, culture. But while I was at it, we as a firm were pushing innovative thinking and sponsoring good commercial ideas and take them to market. So we have our Kearney's own college Shark Tank, right, where anybody can bring a team together and submit an idea that has commercial legs. You go into a global location somewhere in the world and you pitch it to a team of partners who are Kearney Shark Tank. And if you win, you get board funded and you get all the freedom to take the idea to market. And my second chapter to the firm is now a different practice, which is our product practice called Per Lab. And that was born out of this idea, right? We took an idea to Global Innovators Days is what we call it. We won, we got funding. I was a principal elect in the LCO practice. I left that behind and my client base behind, and I was employee number 1 in this practice with the objective of growing this business from scratch. And 4 years in, we have 7 global physical design studios across the world. We have 150 people. We just closed an acquisition of another industrial design firm to tuck into our practice. And it was a super bold move, right? I was starting from scratch with a new client base, with a new expertise that I would have to develop from scratch. But it worked, and it worked for a couple of reasons. One, we as a firm are encouraging more of this bolder thinking and actually even acts to take to market. And I had the backing of the right people behind me, right? Like knowing that I was taking this risk and this bold step to do something different for the firm. And this might fail, and a lot of these would not go anywhere, right? You might end up commercializing it with a couple of clients, and then it goes flat, it loses steam. But I wasn't worried because I also had the right people behind me saying, let's try it out. It's a priority for the firm. We think it has legs. If this doesn't go somewhere, I always had the opportunity to go back to a home I already had built. For me, it's an excellent example of how this has come to life. We've been growing 2x a year every year for the past few years, and we're on that trajectory. And we're getting even bolder with tucking on acquisitions to that. So we're going to continue to do more and more of this. Our Global Innovators Days continues. It's twice a year. And for a lot of people at the firm today, it's been one of their most memorable experiences at the firm, and they've got a lot out of it. So I'm one of them, and I'm loving kind of building this business, almost startup from scratch within a consulting firm. So I think, I mean, we're just closing out here, and then maybe we can open it up, get into all the questions. But at the end of the day, I will say this as I reflect back during my days in school, right? I was in Chicago. I went to Chicago Booth. When I was exploring going to business school, you feel like when you look at the classes, right? There's at the end of the day, you're going to take very similar classes, but it's all about the culture of those schools. I will say, as you think about, where you want to start your career, really think about that cultural connect, right? Where do you fit in? We're going to do good work. We all do great work, right? But from our perspective, for me, the reason I'm here 12 years and counting is it's the people. It's the people that helped me in my early days, that grew me. It's the people that supported me when I wanted to take 3 years off and be with my family and like travel the world. It's the same people that encouraged me to be bold and make different career choices, very bold career choices, at a time where it was the riskier paths to take. And it's the people that continue to support me as I try to continue my journey with 3 young kids at home, being an international, having family all across the world, and trying to be a successful partner. That's why I'm here. And that's what I do now, paid forward. And that's the difference that we bring as a firm.
Great. Maybe, yes, we start the Q&A.
Yes.
I saw.
So if you haven't had any questions answered that you'd like asked, please go ahead and put them in Slido. I can go ahead and pick off some of the questions that we've seen come through. One question that I did see was, is the starting role for both internships and full-time positions typically a generalist, or can you start in a specific practice? So excited to share that our application for our 2024 summer associate role is live. It is available both on our website and on your school's career services pages as well. So you can go ahead and review the application there. We are hiring for 6 different practices. So there is generalist, which we do typically see a variety and a majority of folks come through, but there are the opportunities to come through as practice aligned as well. So we definitely recommend taking a look there and reading those roles to see if any of those are interesting to you as you come through the application process. But for Tate, I know you came through as a generalist when you first started. Do you want to talk about what like the typical experiences for a generalist with project work?
Yeah, I saw something like a day in the life. I'm not sure. It depends if we are a generalist or not. The day in the life is really, really variable in this job, kind of regardless of which practice you find yourself in. But so yeah, so I think it's similar to the like what we spoke about with staffing. So you have both options of being staffed, but you also have the option of kind of making your own network for yourself. And I think I more or less fairly quickly started just working with the network. And if you're a summer associate, you'll already start with the network. So when you join full time, you already have that opportunity to leverage your previous network from the internship to start as a full timer. So yeah, and then one other question I saw was that can you align early? I don't think there's any issue with aligning early. And as Caroline just mentioned, we are actually hiring for certain practices. I think it'll just come down to a question of, have you had the right conversations with the practice leaders and with people in the practice? And have you done some work in that practice? But I don't see there's no fixed, you have to align before this or you have to align after that, as far as I know.
Yep. Great. Thanks, Tate. Another question that I saw come through, Ashley, I'll start with you. I think one thing that we didn't mention off the bat is we are pretty flexible when it comes to offices. So you can transfer very easily if you decide to. So Ashley, what is one of your favorite things about the DC office?
I love it's similar to the kind of vibes we're describing about the firm. It's a smaller office, so we're very close knit, but I think you still have access to the larger firm. So there's the element of like being at a place that's big enough, but then you still have the small, intimate, kind of close-knit culture of the DC office. So we really enjoy spending time together. We hang out on weekends, we hang out on weeknights after work, and it's just a really fun place to be. So I would say that's my favorite thing is how close-knit we are.
Namrata, what about you for Boston?
Yeah, I think it's similar. The other additional points I'll make is one of our acquisitions in the data analytics space is actually a company based out of Boston called Cervelo. So they have more than 100 people. So together we're now a very big group. The other fun thing about Boston is you're in the middle of course, all the universities around Boston. So there's a lot of push on, potential collaboration and doing things at Harvard, at MIT, and all the universities around. And then the second thing is we have a lot of stuff going on in the health space and in the tech space as well. So it's super interesting because it's everything that happens inside the office, but now it's moving a lot with what's happening in the Boston community and us making a push to make sure we're involved in that. So I love it. Yeah.
Kate, anything you want to include about New York?
Yeah, New York's great. Given that it's big, it has a lot of like different activities going on, and it's also a place where a lot of people from other parts of the company co-locate. So it's just a kind of great crossroads office where you get to see people that you've worked with from kind of all over the world. And it's got lots of cool clubs given its size, including the Arts and Culture Club, which is a club that I started because being in New York, you have such great access. So why not find a way to make a club out of it? So yeah, it's a good place.
Great. And then I also saw a question that was asking about transferring across different countries. So that is something that is an opportunity here at Kearney. We do have a program called our Global Mobility Program. So you are able to apply to transfer to another office across the world. We are in 40 different countries, whether that be for a project or for 6 months or to make that transfer permanently. That is something we absolutely offer here at Kearney. The next question, Namrata, I'll go to you. Can you talk a little bit more about the startup work that you focused on instead of larger corporations?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, so we get access to startup work in a few different ways, right? So one is we work with a lot of PE funds, and through the PE funds, whether it's during the DD stage or it's post acquisition, we end up working with the portfolio companies that are of all sizes, like I told you, starting with $50 million. And then the other avenues to work with startups is also through the labs that we have. So we as Kearney also do have a lot of collaboration with universities, which a lot of you might have been a part of, is the student lab program. As a part of the student lab program, we have Kearney teams that coach student teams that work with our clients. And in that space, I have worked with a lot of startups at that phase. Anyone that likes kombucha, by the way, I worked with a 2-person company that made kombucha in their garage and ended up on the shelf at Whole Foods, and I worked with them on their growth strategy. So through student labs. So that's the other avenue where we bring smaller companies that might not have the budget to go through our typical consulting projects, and also nonprofits for that matter. And the third thing is through our network and connections in the different local areas that we have offices in, we tend to get requests from startups through our network where they need advisory work. So we get involved in that as well. I have a startup right now that I'm talking to that is a professor out of MIT that has started his own business, and they're trying to figure out how to scale their product, basically. So there's various ways to get involved. The other thing I would say, I think the question is also asking, I don't know if you're trying to get to the breakup, right, of that versus the larger corporations. If you think about the typical Kearney client, a lot of them tend to be your Fortune 500 companies, right? One, they have a lot of complex problems. 2, they have the budget. And 3, they might have the capacity, but they need someone that's external to kind of navigate the internal silos in their organization, if you may. So I will say the typical Kearney client will be the larger corporation, but there are enough and more avenues for us to do work with nonprofits as well as startups, and I've done it all. The second part of the question is also around the strategy and implementation work, right? So here's what I will say. When I was in your shoes, there was this glamour around, I want to do the big strategy work, and I think that that's great. That's a great starting point. We always start there, right? But a lot of clients will tell you that the value they get out of the consultants is for them, for us to give them a plan that's as close to implementation. So we do a lot of strategic work, whether it's within our TNT practice that we call transactions and transformations. We do large scale transformations where it's starting with, what is your future going to be 3 years down the line, whether it's from a P&L perspective, whether it's from an innovation and product portfolio perspective, and then making a plan on how do you get there. Hardcore implementation work, we don't do a ton of that. There's a reason for it. When it really comes to hardcore implementation work, it's longer term. It could be multiple months, and it just, high value added consulting firms get expensive for that. But one of the acquisitions that we've done is also to start addressing client pull in this area where they are capacity constrained and they want teams to be able to stay over months to do that work. And we are using, some of the companies that we've acquired to kind of stay back for longer and do that.
Great. Thank you so much. I know we're almost at time, so I have one final question. Ashley, can you just talk about the mentorship opportunities that you've had at Kearney so far in your career?
Sure. So I can speak, I guess, to both being mentored and then being able to mentor others. I think from the being mentored perspective, something that I was really looking for in the next stage of my career. And for background, I was a scientist before this, so it's a very, in like PhD programs, it's a very one-on-one, you get one mentor type of thing, and it's, the future of your career is like very dependent on this one relationship. It was important to me to go to a place that was very apprenticeship focused and provided opportunity for you to get mentored broadly and to get a lot of different perspectives and take what was most meaningful and impactful from each of those interactions. And Kearney has absolutely delivered on that. I think it's a part of the culture that we really value. And then in terms of mentoring others through different leadership positions and different employee resource groups that I'm a part of, including the Black at Kearney Network and our LGBTQ network called the Proud Network. As juniors join the firm and join those networks, people reach out and ask for advice, and then you also get assigned as a kind of peer mentor to people to be able to provide advice and counsel. So that's been a really great experience too. And then of course on projects, as you kind of oversee more work, you get to mentor people in that way.
Can I just, I don't know if we have a couple minutes, Caroline, can I just take the question on how we support employees with their mental health?
Absolutely. Please.
Yeah, it's a very important one. And I want to start, I want to remind everyone where I started, right? Our culture is around people. Like for us, employees are not account, it's the real humans behind the screens. And that is fundamental to how we operate. So, I've gone through COVID. We all have, a lot of us have. It hasn't been easy, and we've had very honest conversations. That's one, right? This is not about, just starting every conversation and ending every conversation with just the project work. It's really starting with the small things of like, how are you, right? How are you really doing? And making the space to open up those conversations. So you can only address something if you know what is going on with your teams. If you don't ask the question, there is no space to be able to even figure out what's going on and how do you address it. So I think it's very core to our culture. We've had a lot of formal programs launched in the last 3 years that focus on, structured ways to take time off for, no reasons asked, right? I myself, like in my career, like I said, I've taken 3 full years off. It's a decision that I made when I started a family to have enough time to take a step back and enjoy what I was doing. You can take LOAs, leaves of absence, for any reason, whether it's to take a break, a pause, do something else, travel. People have gone back to their home countries that they haven't, had enough time to spend. So that's an option. There are folks that have also been able to take time off just for mental health reasons. So there are programs we sponsor a lot of, and it's a part of our benefits, access to platforms where, you know, there are medical benefits as well. So, but I think fundamental to all this is, do we have a culture where we encourage these conversations? Because the structural aspects of the benefit and offering is not necessarily addressing the root cause, and what we're focused on is addressing the root cause, and that's through open conversations. Outside of those open conversations, we always have a pulse on, you know, what is our employee satisfaction. We have a weekly barometer, as we call it, and anybody that has a low score gets a call from our people experience team, and if it's low over multiple weeks, gets a call from our head of Americas. So we take it very, very seriously. The consulting industry and generally the industry is evolving, and we completely recognize that all our jobs need to be like, we need to make it work with life, and it's a focus for us, and we've put a lot of things in place. I'm very passionate about it, as you can see. So yeah.
Well, that was very well said, Namrata. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's something that is so important at the firm as well. So I know we are at time, so just real quick, we do have, like I said, a variety of webinars coming up throughout the remainder of the season. You can find all of them here. Our next is on October 13th. And that'll be a panel of all of our former summers that returned back full time. So definitely recommend coming there and asking questions about their summer experience. And like I said before, if your question was not answered, please go ahead and send an email to kearneycareers.mba@kearney.com. We'll go ahead and get those questions answered for you as quickly as we can. So I'd like to end it. Thank our panelists for joining us today. Appreciate you taking time out of your busy Friday. And thank you everyone for joining us as well. I hope everyone has a fantastic weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.